Recently, Shaquille O'Neal shared about his life's journey on a podcast. And one of the things that he shared was he didn't know his stepfather wasn't his biological father until he was 11 years old. And I don't know if you know, but that has a great impact on a young man. Once his stepfather passed, his mother engaged him and inspired him to reunite with his biological father. Now he did that, but here's the thing. Shaquille O'Neal felt like his stepfather was the one who shaped him into the man that he's called to be. This is where I have a few questions. Once he reunited with his father, what was that like? And did that change his life? It doesn't seem like it did, because in that same podcast, Shaquille O'Neal began to talk about his marriage. And one of the gentlemen interjected and said, no. It takes two. And Shaq actually said, no, it took me. That old saying that goes into, it takes two to destroy something. No, it only takes one. And so today, we're going to talk about the sins of the fathers. I am Dr. Torri J, and this is I've Got Daddy Issues. So next to me, I actually have a couple of men, and we're going to have a real conversation. We're going to have a deep conversation. I've got Mr. Keith Sagers. And I have Mr. Mike Walton. And I am super excited to have this conversation with these two because I know they're opinionated. And I know they're gonna keep it real. And so as we get into this, let me go here, because I want to talk about the father wound and the scars that it creates. Because when we're looking at Shaquille O'Neal having this conversation, you guys know the conversation I'm talking about, he divulges a lot of information. He tells us a lot about his journey. What was your take when he stopped the gentleman and said, no, it was me, all me?
I think it came down to Shaquille O'Neal, just his ownership.
Yeah.
I own this. I went out here and I did these things. I have to own them as well. And a lot of times people, they don't want to own the good stuff. They don't want to own the bad stuff.
Right.
You know, so it's like, hey, no, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah,
because they got, so the guy stopping here, it was turning into more like, hey, we got your back. It's the bro code. And Shaq is like, no, we're not doing that. I'm telling you, it was me. I made this decision. I own up to this. And I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Because sometimes you have to put your brothers in check. You have to put them in place at certain times and let them know, hey, no, we're not going to just excuse this. You're just not going to excuse my actions or my words or anything like that. If I'm not going to excuse them, I don't want you to excuse them. I'm owning up to what I did. I'm not asking you to accept it. But as a man,
yeah,
I'm telling you to just be respectful of my
And the
decisions.
one guy, he wasn't feeling it. The one who was like, no. And I was like, oh, he is not dateable. Oh, he is horrible. Like the fact that he even thought that. The bro code.
Yeah.
So how did you take it, Keith?
Well, exactly the same way. You know,
Were you shocked?
No, I'll be honest, I was shocked.
Okay.
The level of ownership that he took, I think, was shocking, right? It's something you really don't you see often. As a matter of fact, he took it and said, I'm glad we're going to have this conversation because let me say this, right? And he said it was on me. And the way he said it, you could tell the brother had went through some things through that entire process, but now he's reclaiming, it's not just about responsibility. He's saying, I own all of this, right? And in anything you do, when you take your ownership back, you're actually reclaiming your own power.
Yes.
Right? So even by the way he was saying it, you can tell he was very resolute in what he was thinking, what he was saying. And I think it sent a clear message to people.
I think it sent a clear message to women, too. We're going to use this moment to talk about the women who've dated men like Shaq, married men like Shaq, and felt responsible, felt like if they could have just done one more thing, if they could have just done, and there was nothing she could have done, is what he basically broke that down to. How many of you have either one of you experienced that, where you had a boy and you knew he was out of pocket and his girl was carrying the load of that? Tell me about that.
Well, for me, I've had several friends who've been in that situation. But back then, for me, I wasn't in the area that I am doing now with the Man Initiative. So it was more just, hey, okay, yeah, I see you. You got some issues going on and stuff like that. It's not right, but I'm going to stay out of your business. Now I'm in your business because I care. It's not the fact that I'm trying to be nosy. I care. And one of the things that Shaq said in the podcast was she did her part. She did her part. I'm the one that didn't do my part. Yeah. And I have friends come and say, oh man, she's not doing this, she's not doing that. And I ask, what are you doing? What are you doing? Well, no. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing your part, how do you expect her to do her part? You know? So I'm just like, do your part, brother. Do your part, you know, and go from there.
How do you feel his fatherless journey played into this, Keith? Not the ownership part, but the wilding out part that he was talking about. Like the part where he was out here, he didn't even want to disclose all of the stuff that he had done. And I don't want to, once again, I don't want to make it about Shaquille O'Neal. There are enough men out here who are living this life, and they don't really know that it really goes back to their father wound and their fatherlessness. I want you to talk about that for me.
You know, certainly. And you have to give some space or some grace to the fact that, you know, Shaq is, you know, an icon, right?
Yes.
And a multi-millionaire. His face is known all over the world, right? And to be put in situations and environments where you're allowed to do certain things is different, you know. And I think you have to be mindful of that, right? Because when you're in that kind of role, have that kind of power, have that kind of, you know, influence, you're allowed to do certain things.
You get away with it. There's a different kind of grace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get a pass.
You get a pass.
Yeah.
You get a pass.
Do you think the women give them a pass?
Sure. I
mean,
think it has to happen. You know
I have
what
a
I mean?
lifestyle I've
Obviously.
become accustomed to. Okay, you
Absolutely.
cheated once, you cheated twice. Maybe I'll let you
absolutely.
get away with it because it's no big deal.
Yeah. I mean, it's a scary situation, I think, on either end. You know,
What makes it scary?
Well, I think if you look at it from a woman's perspective, maybe, and I don't want to speak for another woman, but I can only imagine. You know, I mean, you know, your whole life is built around this person, right?
Yeah.
And to have to say, you know what, this is it based on, you know, these kinds of indiscretions or these kinds of actions. I mean, it takes a real level of courage and bravery that you really don't see often.
I want to go into something here. I took a few notes, and I want to talk about this space of father wound. I don't know how much the audience knows, and even when I'm describing this, but it leads into why we have issues in our relationship. It says the father wound is an emotional scar that results from unhealthy relationships with our fathers, right? And when we feel resentment of our fathers in some way, shape, or form, whether they left or they were abusive, we experience unresolved trauma. And how do you heal something that you're just not even aware of? A lot of men have anger, resentment, frustration, and they take it out on those that are around them. And most times they don't even know that this root cause has actually been passed down from generation to generation. We talk about baby mamas, but we don't talk about how that fatherlessness plays out from one generation to the next generation. And when I look at Shaquille O'Neal, I don't know much about his biological father, but what I do know is there were some things that he was clearly carrying. And he cut it off at the past in that conversation. Have you two ever dealt with a father wound that you knew you had to address and you had to deal with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what's interesting, you talk about the father wound, and so many, especially black men, but just men in general, have that wound and just don't really know what that is, right? And, you know, I've always come from the perspective that, you know, men typically get their identity from their father.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, who am I as a person, as a man? What does that look like? And when that person is absent or has been painted in a picture that's anything other than probably healthy for a child to see, at no fault of that child's, it becomes a problem. And so, I could tell you, like, from my own personal, story, my father, left when I was 3. And even I still, have varying perspectives because my whole life I've been saying my father left when I was 3. Well, maybe my mom left.
Oh.
I don't know. But you see, sometimes you have to shift that perspective, and it's not always what you think it is. And then, I spent so much of my time growing up trying to find identity. Right. And so it was funny because I was listening to Shaq's podcast. I'm like, damn, it's like, it's very much similar to what I've experienced in my own life. And, having a stepfather who I call, that's my dad, right? There's no distinction, right? And a lot of who I have become is based on what he has given me and exposed me to and how he raised me.
Yeah.
And then coming back and having my father come back into my life later on. And then I look back at I look at the gifts that he's giving me and things that just for being his child, genetics wise, one thing, but, the things that I've learned from him, even in an older age, that has benefited to who I am today. Yeah. So now I just kind of look at things like, I appreciate everything because it's made me who I am.
Absolutely. You have that reunification story. Not everybody gets that opportunity. And so thank you for sharing that. I was going to see if I could throw it in there on the double because I know a little bit about you. And so that's when a man gets an opportunity. See, we talk about girls' reunification and reuniting, but not that often do we get to hear that story of a man reuniting with his father. Give me a little bit more about what that was like that day and that moment when your father came back into your life.
Well, so here's the thing. Dad was always there, right? Maybe not physically, but you always kind of felt his presence and he wanted to be there. Nice. And so sometimes, again, I think a lot of it is based on the environment and circumstances where if that's actually allowed or not, and these just real conversations,
Yeah.
and in relationships, people are hurt. People will, they'll turn into people that you never thought they'll turn into, right? All under the guise of protecting our children.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God.
Right. So it had been this thing where I grew up believing that I couldn't trust him. So when he would come, it would be I was happy to see him because I wanted my dad. But then there was this thing like
it's still this wall.
It's still this wall, right? And it wasn't until I got older that I started to understand and find out information on my own. Like I had to become my own person, my own man, and really trying to understand what that looked like. And when the time came, it was kind of a hit and go, right? It's kind of like false starts here.
Yes,
absolutely. You go through that, right? But you give each other a lot of grace at the same time. Yeah. And I never forget. I was sitting in my car, parked in front of the college, just getting ready to go back to teach a class, and I was on the phone with my father, and we had this conversation, and we started talking about just the varying things that I just didn't know or wanted to know, and I just said, Dad, you know what, it doesn't even matter anymore. I said, I just want you to know I forgive you, I forgive Mom, I forgive everything that has happened in this. I want us to hit the reset button.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was a defining moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike. When we're talking about a father wound, tell me what you know about this.
So, personally for me, I haven't had the same story he's had.
I got you.
My story's a whole lot different. My mother actually left my father, and that's how we ended up in Georgia, and he stayed back in Virginia. But upon that, some things happened in between all of that going on, which he ended up in prison. I'm not gonna go into all the details. So I know how it is not to have your father there in your life, and you just solely just relying on. For me, it was just my mother. Now I thank God for my uncle because he stepped in whenever he could to make sure that I was good.
Yeah.
Granted, he couldn't be there every time because he was in the military also. He couldn't be there every time. But when he came in town, he made sure that I was good.
Is that how you followed the military path?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Because
I do know that much about you. Yeah. So your uncle had that much influence where he became the path that you followed.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. He had that much influence on me to the point like I want to be like my uncle.
Wow.
I want to be like my uncle. And he never said, "Nephew, be like me. Be like me." He was just giving me an example.
Yeah.
We both came from the projects. He's just giving me an example. Hey, I came from the projects. Look what I'm doing. You can do the same thing. You can do the same thing. So when I actually reconnected with my father, this was back in 2002.
Okay.
I went to go see him in prison. And for me, that was a life-changing experience. Life-changing experience. That was the first time I seen my dad in well over 15 years.
And how old were you at that point?
I think I was around about, actually, no, it's been longer than 15 years. Maybe like 18, 20 years. I think I was around about 24, 25 at the time.
Did you ever want to see him before that? Did you
I
ever like
did.
want your mom to take?
I
So,
did.
oh,
I wanted to go back home.
because so many mothers are like, I'm not taking him up there. But you know what I've learned? There are some young men who are intentionally getting in trouble to find themselves in prison with their fathers. Like they're thinking about it logically, but it's not right.
Yeah.
It's illogical.
Yeah.
Who says you're going to end up in the same prison? Number one, like.
Exactly.
But I know a whole situation like that.
Yeah.
A little boy was getting in trouble at school, brought a gun to school.
Oh, wow.
And when they brought it down to like, what's going on? I want to see my dad. And I was trying to get into prison to go see my father.
That's heavy.
That is heavy.
That's really heavy. And sad at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very sad.
Mothers, they're like, I don't want him to end up like him, so I don't want to expose him to that. But sometimes exposure shows you what not to do, not actually what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So you go up, you see your dad, you hadn't seen him in all this time. What was that experience like?
Wow. The conversation was about 10 minutes long. It was brief.
Why?
Well, one, because they had him in the infirmary because he was ill.
Okay.
So when they brought him out, my dad was a big husky guy, before he got ill. When they brought him out, he was my size. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like what happened? So we sat down, we talked, and he asked me 3 questions. He asked me the same question 3 times. You know what that question was?
No, tell us.
He leaned forward, he said, do you read the Bible? I was floored. I'm like, what? I ain't never heard my dad talk about that.
Oh, okay.
He asked me that 2 more times. And every time I said, no, sir, he kind of sat back, he's like, He looked up in the air, I was like, he was just thinking about something. He said, okay, how's your mother doing? I said, she's doing fine. He said, okay, military, right? I said, yes, sir. Okay. He just sat there. I think he was doing more processing than actually trying to have a conversation with me.
Yeah.
I wanted to engage in the conversation. I had so many questions to ask. He just wanted to just think about things. That's what I was thinking. So the part that kind of broke my heart was when the nurse came back and said, hey, we have to, visitation hours over with. So I said, okay, can you take him back first? I was there with my grandmother. So can you take him back first before I leave? And she said, no, policy is visitors have to leave first. And I didn't want to do that because I felt like when my mom and I left the first time.
My God.
Even though I was young, 12 or 13 years old, I felt like I was turning my back on him again. And I boo-hoo cried like a baby. And my grandma just held me on the way out the door. I did not want to turn my back on him and that was my last time seeing him before he passed on.
Imagery.
Yeah.
You didn't want to do the same thing to your father that you knew you and your mother had done to him.
Right.
How many years prior to
Right.
whatever that was.
Yeah. And it was more of a personal thing, nothing against my mother because she made a decision to do what she needed to do in order to save her life.
Right.
But for me, I was like, I don't want to do that no more. I didn't want to do it. And it was so hard for me to leave. And I begged, I said, please just take him back. And she said, sir, we can't. You have to leave first. And that's when I lost it. I lost it. Like my eyes are welling up right now talking about it, I just lost it. And it was good, and I regret it at the same time. Because that was my last time seeing him.
Whoa.
That was my last time seeing him.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
And how old were you then?
I was around about 25. Yeah. And I carry that still to this day. So the older I got and I started getting in church, I started looking at other men, looking at the pastors and the elders and the ministers. Any man that I saw that was pretty much astute to the point, like he carried himself a certain way, then I would see myself trying to mimic those things and try to carry myself like him, talk like him, dress like him, all these things. Be interested in the things that they were interested in, all the man stuff. And come to find out, I was trying to be everybody else except for myself.
My gosh.
So that's still. Yeah,
that's a moment.
Yeah.
That's a powerful moment.
It still sits with me to this day. And the crazy thing is, I talk about all this stuff, you know, when I go live, I talk about all this stuff. I'm openly talking about it. And so many people have come and talked to me. It's like, hey, man, I thank you. You know, I didn't know that about you. It's a lot of stuff that we as men, we carry that people don't know about.
And you're not talking about it.
Right.
Because let me, I want to pivot the conversation just a little bit, because I do feel like this goes into the conversation, because dad is what dad does kind of thing. And if you learn from a father who's not very communicative, you see him, you know, we all know men as the silent types, right? But is that a bonus? Is that good? Is that beneficial to their family? And so when you're saying, I'm being open, I'm being vulnerable, I'm sharing, and why men don't do that, is it because they're mimicking the men that were or are in their lives?
Well, I don't know if I can say they're mimicking the men. I think it's part of the indoctrination, not just, and if the men aren't there, they're being indoctrinated by whoever else is there.
Yeah.
So,
Stepfather, surrogate, coach,
could
whoever
be
that
mothers,
is.
could be
Yeah,
aunties
uncles,
and uncles,
grandfathers,
you know, right. And so there's always this stigma around, men don't cry, men, we don't do this, we don't do that. And so when men are going through things that are very heavy mentally and struggle with things that we do in silence, right? And you try to find outlets, and sometimes those outlets aren't always healthy either, right? Yeah. So part of, I think, I'm sitting there listening to my brother, and it's drawing, again, some real interesting parallels, because it got me thinking. Is that your father, that father wound shows up, and it'll show up, anytime. It'll be something new that will come up that you'll make a connection and you just didn't think about, right? Because I'm listening to you, like, you're saying that don't take him back, right? And I'm sitting there, I remember my last day with my dad on his deathbed, and I was the only one there. And it was late, and I was there all night, and I was like, okay, I gotta go get the boys ready for school, and I was like, I don't want to leave. I don't want, I don't want him to think that I'm gone. And when I literally left, like 10 minutes later, I got a call to come back and said he was gone. Right. And I'll tell you, one of the things that, and like you, I mean, just, I didn't want to think that I wasn't there for him. Yeah. Right. And that translates into being a father now for my own boys. I'm like, I don't want my boys to ever feel that I'm not there for them. Yep. Right. So it can be a very unhealthy kind of behavior too. But I will say this, one of the things that I'm grateful for is that at the end of the day, my father and I, there was nothing left unsaid between the two of us. Right. Yeah. Like nothing left. So all of the things that we wanted to talk about, all the things that we wanted to do, all the things we wanted to discover, we were able to do so in that time, I think God gave us. So, it's one of those things that, it's a deep dive. Absolutely. It's a very, very deep dive. And sometimes you don't know how deep you got to go.
I find it very interesting how you two have shared these emotional, intimate moments about your father. But you both also shared about the men who raised you and how you are, almost a carbon copy in some ways of these men. So you even said, the man who raised me, that's who I saw as my dad. I'm watching you, Michael. I ended up in the military because of this person. Ooh. The level of honor and respect, did you ever feel pulled between the two once there's this reconnection for you, this reunite for you, and then you're in prison visiting your dad? Did you feel any pull between respect and honor?
I did with the respect part. It's because the way I looked at it was like, my dad did what he knew how to do. Okay. Good, bad, and ugly. He did what he knew how to do. And that's all I can say, because he would tell me often, son, don't grow up to be like me. Don't be like me. And then 20 years later, I found myself being just like him. Some of my personality traits, my mannerisms, relationships and things like that. I'm like, man, I'm like my dad. And all this time, I'm trying to break from that barrier, but I was never breaking it. I was just busting my knuckles. That's all I was doing. But I was still being like my dad.
Because DNA doesn't lie.
Oh my goodness, come on, yes.
DNA doesn't lie.
Right.
My girlfriend told me, she said, that's your new t-shirt line. Like, you at least need to do one t-shirt that says that.
As he was saying, so far as, taking that deep dive, I had to take that deep dive. And that deep dive happened for me back in 2016. That's when the deep dive happened for me. And I'm telling you, like, I'm a firm believer in God. When God wants to show you something, he's going to show you. And when I tell you God whipped my butt, he whipped my tail. Like, because he just put everything out there in front of me.
Yeah.
So, but to go back to the question, like, yeah, that part right there is like, I respected my dad still. Even though I knew what he did, I still had a level of respect for him.
We find ourselves dealing with issues and symptoms without even really knowing how to address the problem, not even knowing that it's really a problem. That's why you said, I was trying not to be with him, but I was busting my knuckles because you hadn't done the work. Right. You didn't even know you needed to do the work.
Yeah.
That conversation comes up a lot in my podcast, where so many don't even know when they're fatherless that they need to do this work because we have normalized this thing. We have told people it's not trauma, and they think they good because their mama took care of them and they had a village, so-called, not realizing that we all need the other part of ourselves. Mm-hmm. When it came to your DNA and your dad showed up, did you look at yourself and go, oh my God, I'm a lot like him?
I think the thing was interesting, I guess, about my story is that because of the narrative and that he left and that, all of these things, I also had his name.
Yes.
Right? And so I associated my name with all of the things that were negative that I was hearing. And what I didn't realize is internally I was really internalizing that and hating myself too, because I hated him.
Yeah.
Right. And and people would, whether it was my mother, she would remind me about something, and it may be a comment like, I don't want you to be like your dad. And as harmless as it may be, and people, a lot of times mothers make that comment out of fear.
Yes. As
a correction tool, but it kind of reinforces certain things in people. And, so I grew up a lot seeing my father. He's very charismatic, very, people love him. He's brilliant, and I didn't learn who he was until I was grown. Learned that, he was, graduated from high school at like 16 and went to Tuskegee at 17. All these amazing things that were just, I guess, kept from me, I guess, in a sense, right? So when we talk about respect, like, I didn't have respect for him my entire life, but I always honored fatherhood. Yeah. Right? And
that's what we're taught, right?
Exactly.
Honor thy mother and thy father, and toxic or not.
My stepfather, my bonus father, Phil, my dad, all respect. Yeah. He was a military man. But I remember watching him. I remember him, he was Puerto Rican. I remember he was inside, he was cooking, he dancing while he cooks. And I find myself dancing and singing while I cook. It's just because I guess that's the thing. We do what we see, not what we're told.
Come on.
Right? And kids, that's how we learn. Yeah. We learn about what we see, not about what you just tell me. So I follow the examples, right? And, and still to this day, now I have tremendous honor and respect for both of those men. And, my stepfather is still living. We have a very close relationship. And I honor and respect that relationship. We're closer now than we've ever been.
I love the fact that you can honor and respect them both. And you don't have to choose. Too often, we're made to choose. And it's not fair. It's not fair to us as children, and it's not fair to us as adults.
Let me tell you this, and this was really, I think, a defining moment around that particular point for me, was that my biological father told me, Keith, I just want you to let you know that I love Fred. And Fred was my stepfather. He said, I love him. The reason I love him is because he was there for you all. He took care of you. You were his kids. Like, there's no distinction, right? So that it was okay.
It was okay to love them both.
Absolutely.
Especially if your biological father gives you the freedom and the permission. That's the word. Yes. The permission to do that. That can be
It's a game changer.
Yeah, that's a game changer because that can be stifling. That can be a prison in itself. I'm a pivot because we're talking about relationships, blended families. You went there. What are some of the consequences that you might have paid or, some things you demonstrated that led to broken relationships in your life? Because I heard you talk about it a minute ago. You're like, oh, I had some bad situations, blah, blah, blah. Like, how did this play out in what consequences you actually had? I guess that's what I want to ask.
I just didn't know any better. Honestly, I didn't know any better.
Did you lose the love of your life not knowing any better?
I can't say that I did.
Okay.
But I'm speaking to the point of when I was married.
Gotcha.
That part, like, I just didn't know any better because I'm married versus me being in a marriage. You know, just walking around with the title, hey, I'm a husband, I'm married, but not even looking at, hey, you have responsibilities, you have duties.
You didn't know what it looked like, so you didn't know what to do.
I knew what it looked like on the outside.
Yeah, but not dealing with day-to-day stuff.
Hold your wife's hand, make sure she's good to go, love on her, hug her, kiss her, all these things like that. But when it came down to those deep, personal, intimate things, outside of intimacy, I'm scratching my head. I'm like, I don't know. So so I didn't know. So to the point, and that kind of goes back to not having a father around.
Yes.
To be able to pour into me, to let me know, hey, this is what you do, this is what you need to do.
And watching your parents move together.
Right.
I don't know how much I want to say. I don't want to give names, but I will say he is a singer-songwriter, Grammy award-winning, all of this. And when we watched his documentary during my NBA All-Star weekend, him and I had caught up on a few things, and he said, my wife that's in that documentary, I lost her because I told her the truth. And I said, excuse me? Like, y'all went through this whole process. Like, she walked away. And he said, yes, she walked away because at the end of the day, I didn't know any better. I didn't know what I was doing. And this man was 40 by the time he walks through this journey in this documentary. And he ends up buying the home that they were raised in, going and finding his father, reuniting with his father, going through this struggle with his father, alcoholic, homeless, whatever. And he told me during that conversation, he said, my mother and father now live together. And at 40, I go and tell my wife the truth, and I lose her. But I lose her because I need to tell her the truth, because watching my parents move together blew my mind, and it changed me as a man. And I thought, wait, are your parents a couple? He said, they say they're not. But watching them in a home together and moving together, it just changed who he was as a person.
Yeah.
To the point he was like, I gotta do this better. And in order to do it better, I gotta come clean. And he lost everything. Now he's now remarried, and I see them enjoying themselves. Right. But that's a real conversation that you're having.
Oh, yeah.
That's an honest conversation to say, I didn't know any better. So I had all these things that were following me, and I didn't know what to do because I never watched it play out.
Right.
Keith, did you have, what's your consequence to that?
I mean, I've lost a love, doing stupid stuff. And I think, again, a lot of it is based in my identity or lack thereof, or, a hodgepodge.
Yep.
And sometimes there's an arrogance that you can get, and I think that's...
Talk about that for a second. What's the arrogance? Is it ego-driven?
It can be very well ego-driven.
Okay.
And even if you don't think it's ego-driven, it can be very well ego-driven. But I think in every situation, and this was a first love in high school and in college, and you're like, oh, this it's amazing, and then here it is, but you mess it up, right? And my brother was talking about mistakes, and it was like, no, these are decisions.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're all decisions that we make in those moments. And I think whether or not we're honest with ourselves about the decisions and why we made them.
Yeah.
There's just sometimes there's some things that are in us, whether we put them there or not,
Yes.
that I think kind of shape the way we may make decisions or move on certain things. So, at this particular point in my life, after a lot of work on self, right? Like I work harder on myself than anything else that I do. Because I know when I'm better, like things are easier, right? But I have to be better. I have to be a better person coming to the table, regardless, for my boys and for everything else. So, so when I look at the mistakes of the past or the decisions I made in the past, I don't look back with regret anymore. But now I look back, understanding that they were part of my journey.
Okay, that's good. So I'm gonna ask you as we wrap this up. I want to ask you both. What's the solution to this? The sins of the fathers are real. The scripture says it, right? It visits to the third and fourth generation. And too often, it's very much so part of this context.
Right.
If you're growing up fatherless, you don't know what those sins are, so you don't know what's visiting. And so you take it on as identity. You take it on as a love in your life. You take it on as a responsibility of not wanting to walk out of the jail and turn your back on your father. And so, how would you help someone understand and provide a solution to this conversation, like the pain of the father wound and taking ownership of who you are? As you said it earlier, it's power. What's the solution you would give someone?
So, I told you I'm a father, right?
Yes.
Two amazing boys, Connor and Kyle. And I'll give it to you in this context because I believe, as men, I believe we have a moral obligation to be, to bridge the gap, right? To be that stop measure in between what the gap is and bridge that gap. And so, my boys are in elementary school, and it made a point where I knew I was going to be active and involved father anyway, because it's just who
You're on
and
the
how I
PTA.
am. Foundation.
Yes.
but I just joined the PTA for the new kid.
Okay.
Yes. But I come from a mindset where, wherever my child is my child, but any child that walks through that door is mine too. So I don't take ownership of my child, I take ownership of every child that walks through the door, right? And that I have a moral obligation to be able to add value in some way. And if God gives me the opportunity to share that particular piece with a young man, then that's what it was supposed to be. Or a young girl, then that's what it's supposed to be. So it's back to ownership for me, right? It's ownership, saying that, you know what, I am going to stand in the place that I'm supposed to be and deliver what it is that I'm supposed to deliver, regardless.
Okay, now. Okay, Mike?
That's deep. That's deep. I like that. And I want to add on to that point, speaking from this sense. For me, I would tell people to be the example that you didn't have. Regardless of how much work it takes you to be the example, be that example. I didn't have that example. So I had to find examples. I had to read about examples. I had to watch even movies like TV shows, anything that I can pull from, to say, hey, this is what it's like. This is what I'm supposed to do, Oh, I can relate. I've done that before. Man, and that wasn't a good turnout. So for me, this is what I'll tell guys. You have to allow whoever you believe in or whoever you call upon to help you do the work. You have to lay down and let somebody work on you. Nobody goes into surgery without any, type of anesthesia.
No.
Nobody. It's too painful. It's too painful.
And God is a great anesthesia.
Right.
Because some of this pain is too much
it's too
to
much.
bear.
Right.
Yes.
And that's what he says, I'll carry that burden for you. But we still have to do some work on ourselves as well. And we have to be open. And I just take a lot of time and I tell people, hey, just be open. Be honest. If you can lie to everybody else. Don't lie to yourself.
Yeah.
Why are you lying to yourself?
Yeah.
Get to a point where you can pour into yourself. It's cleansing. When you can release those tears, it's cleansing. When you can scream, I've done all that. scream, holler, cry, laid in the fetal position just to get all this stuff out. It's a release. We, especially for men, I would tell them, get to a point where you can release. Get around people where you can release all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they'll reach out to you and help you back up. Instead of look down on you and point and laugh and make fun of you. Yeah, we got to get to a point where we can release and let this stuff out.
I recognize, as we're wrapping this up, that there are some men who, they have men around them, but when they need to reach to release, they haven't built the proper circle, and so they can't reach out to this person and this person, and they find themselves stuck.
Yeah.
They find themselves isolated because when they need help, the dude you partied with in college or you smoked with or whatever you did with, like, these aren't the men to reach out with. It's very important for men to create the proper circle so that when they need to reach out, they have someone that they can release.
As he was saying, we got to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
Got to bridge the gap.
Thank you two for joining us today. Like, this was a conversation that could have went on and on and on. I know. Look, I was like, oh, okay, we already gonna break this up into 2 parts anyway. So I'm grateful to have you guys on. So thank you. What we learned today in the episode of Sins of Our Fathers is acknowledgement and accountability are necessary so that you can step into your power. There was something that happened when you listened to the conversation that Shaquille O'Neal has. He actually shifted a paradigm. It doesn't take two to make a relationship work. It takes two to maintain it, but it only takes one to destroy it. We also learned that the father wound is a very real thing, and how it plays out in our daily lives, in our relationships, and in our marriage can actually be beneficial and healing, or it can be destructive. I thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. You're watching I've Got Daddy Issues with Dr. Torri J.
Yeah.